You can go ahead and get it rocking, man. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Champ podcast, episode number 83, talking about feminism versus femininity. Now, this is a podcast that is probably a little bit overdue. If I'm going to keep it 100, right? I think it's a little overdue. This is something that I have been thinking about a lot, and definitely was very looking forward to making this podcast for sure. So, just to get things started, if you're in here, make sure you go ahead and leave a comment just like it's used in here, and also make sure you go ahead and leave a like on my YouTube Shorts that I have posted throughout this week, as well as the TikTok as well. Make sure you go ahead and follow me on TikTok. It's just Life of Champ Podcast on TikTok as well, which I'll be posting weekly content on there as well. So if you like the shorts, make sure you go and tap in with those for sure. Also, I am now creating shorter clips of the podcast that are longer than the actual shorts. So if the podcast interests you, but you can't catch a full podcast, make sure you go ahead and tap in with those shorter clips, because those are definitely going to be very, very impact filled. I would say they're very, very knowledge filled because they're a little bit longer. I would say a little bit longer. They're like 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes usually. So definitely look forward to those as well. Other than that, if you do have an opinion that wants to be voiced, like I said, make sure to go and leave it in the comments, because this is definitely going to be one where there is going to be a lot of opinions, right? There's going to be a lot of things I'm going to be going over on this podcast. So like I said, I'm going to try to pay attention to the comments as much as I possibly can. But, we're going to see how this goes. Give me a second. All right, cool. All right, so the reason why I wanted to make this podcast in the first place is because of the simple fact that there's women that go around nowadays that do not even know the difference. I've asked plenty of women the question of, hey, do you know what femininity is, right? And surprisingly, women don't know what it is. They are not educated on what it actually is. And I find that absolutely fascinating, because that is most of their nature. That is most of your nature. So if you can just recognize that, where I ask women, hey, what is femininity? I'm not asking girls, I'm asking women. I ask women this, and they question what's the difference, right? Like, just as this one person in the gym that I talked to today, and I told her that I'm going to be doing a podcast on feminism versus femininity. She's like, oh, I don't even know the difference. I'm like, that's why I'm making the podcast. And like I said, I've had this conversation plenty of times with women where they can't even define what femininity is, right? And I do think that is a fundamental problem within society, because it is so important of what creates a healthy and strong foundation for society, okay? So that is the reason why I wanted to make this podcast, right? And I wanted to voice some of my opinions on, like I said, some of these topics that I see, or some of these observations that I have within society, right? So, like I said, it's all going to get covered on this podcast. So, like I said, if you're in here, make sure to leave a comment just like it's used in here. But we're going to go ahead and get it rocking, all right? So, feminism, right? What is feminism? Feminism is, or also known as the feminist movement, is basically women's empowerment. It's like a women's movement where they refer to the. I'm reading this off of something I read. Um, it is the series of social movements and political campaigns for the radical and liberal reforms on women's issues created by inequalities between men and women. All right. So with that being said, that is a whole lot to take in, but it is basically an absolutely necessary thing within society. Absolutely necessary. Initially for sure, it was definitely necessary, because obviously women were not where they should have been, and now they are where they should be, realistically speaking. So which is great. Like I said, round of applause, right? That's something that was obviously needed within society. So that's great. But what I will say, though, is the same movement that was, let's just say, it founded in 1984, or not 1984, 1848, if I'm not mistaken. That's one of the first movements has happened. So, with that being said, there's been plenty of other movements, not movements, but waves of feminism, right? So, I'm not too well versed on it, but I'm just gonna give you my point of view, more specifically on modern day feminism, because that is, like I had mentioned, something that is completely different than what it usually was, what it was meant to be, versus what it is right now. I do think that the people who started the feminist movement would look down upon, truly look down upon, some of the ways in which some of the feminist movement acts nowadays. And I say that because Do I think it's gone too far? Me personally, I do think it's gone too far. It's gone too far because for many different reasons, which I'll get into right now. So, through my perception, this is what I see, and maybe I have a misconstrued perception of it, and like I said, I could be completely wrong, right? But I'm just gonna give you my lens because, like I said, this is Life of Champ podcast. I want to give you my opinion on it, right? So, the past, like I said, is absolutely necessary. The evolution of feminism, in my opinion, is to make women more masculine. It is a pursuit of masculine endeavors, right? That's what I personally see, right? And if you know anything about women in their nature, it's not exactly ideal because now there is some things that are necessary, like I said, equality within the workplace and things like that. I believe in that for sure. Of course, I couldn't imagine a world where it was any different or that it should be any different, right? With that being said, I do believe that there's certain things that, like I said, have just went way too far. And one of them is pushing the women out of the house and into the workforce, right? That was now, like I said, it was necessary to an extent, right? It was necessary to an extent, but now you look at the way society is right now, there's rarely any stay-at-home moms, right? And that is very, very interesting because you see the impact that it has on society, and it actually indeed does have an impact. And if you don't recognize that, then I would say you're just not looking, quite frankly. Um, but with that being said, if you have the women out of the house, who's going to raise the children? Because obviously the man's working. Most men work. There's very, very few stay-at-home dads, right? If you're watching this and you're a stay-at-home dad, all right, that's cool, I guess. But they don't exist. They don't exist in abundance. Let's just say that, okay? But like I said, I personally don't see too many stay-at-home wives anymore, and I do believe that, like I said, has is a very, very crazy impact within society. Because like I said, or like I did mention actually, there's going to be a difference in how your children is raised. They're going to be raised differently, right? Who are they raised by? You ask the question, right? If they're not raised by, well, of course they're going to be raised by the parents. But if the parents are at work, who is truly raising the children? Hmm. Society is raising children, right? And now, if you look at society, do you think society actually has your children's best interest in mind? Hmm. I would say no. Not all the way. Of course, there's some things that are great within the propaganda that they push out to our children, but at the same time, do you truly believe that they have all the best intentions for your children? And I would say no. There's a lot of conflict that comes in the household because let's just say your child has overheard a conversation that maybe they probably uh, shouldn't have heard, or maybe a conversation that you didn't want them to hear, right? And with that being said, it just kind of shows that lens of society raising the children instead of the parents being the main thing, right? You can say that they're the main thing even if they work, but truly, um, you can only be so influential when you're at work for an extended period of time, right? You can try your best. I'm not saying that men or women that work jobs. I'm not saying that they're any less of a parent than a person who would could actually care for that person, care for that child a little bit more. But it's just gonna be a different way of being raised, right? And I don't think it's as optimal to have your child be raised by society. It's not as optimal as it could be, where let's just say the woman in the household is able to do what she needs to do in the household and raise the children, right? Like I said, I'm not saying it's not necessary, right? I'm saying it applies differently to every single situation, but in an ideal world, that's how I would like it to be, because I do believe that it would be most beneficial that way, me personally. But another thing that I want to mention, and I overheard this from a few clips and things like that. Also, the person that's in the thumbnail, absolutely fantastic. Um, but yeah, would say that. She mentioned how she's seen how feminism was going, and she recognized that it's truly a war on masculinity, right? Because you're telling women to pursue, like I had mentioned, be on the pursuit of masculine endeavors, be more like men, to the point where women tried so hard to be equal to men that they forgot how to be women. Hmm. Let that sink in. I'm going to say that one more time. Women tried so hard to be equal to men that they forgot how to be women, right? With this feminism movement that has came, right? Women are more and more out of touch of they're out of touch with their true femininity, which, like I mentioned, man, if you're out of touch with that, wow, like society's going, you're going to see the little things in society that could be better if you know if it wasn't such a masculine endeavor. Honestly, I would say feminism right now it is more of a masculine endeavor than it ever has been, right? And like I said, it's completely a changed so much, so much. Appreciate it on Twitch. Appreciate it, I guess. All right, we're gonna keep rocking, man. But yeah, I'm gonna say that one more time for you guys. This is very, very important, right? Women tried so hard to be equal to men that they forgot how to be women. We no longer embrace the obvious differences within men and women, right? And a person who, embraces those can be labeled a lot of different things, right? To embrace femininity or to embrace masculinity, you're automatically put in this box. You're automatically labeled a certain thing instead of a person who recognizes that it's optimal for society. Now, like I said, fellas, if you remove femininity, which I'll get into what femininity truly is, right? If you remove femininity from the society, you have too much masculine energy, right? The women are masculine, the men are masculine. Who who's taking care of the people that need to be taken care of? Truly. Now you might financially be taken care of, but I'm talking about like what's actually needed, the nurturing care that is needed with femininity. So I'll get into that right now. I'm gonna say a few things, and like I said, these are going to be controversial takes, but I'm gonna give you my point of view on them. Okay. So the feminism movement has pushed out this false paradigm, quite frankly, right? And it's got misconstrued time and time again. But I'm going to say it, and if you would like to have the discussion about it, we can have the discussion. But the first point I wanted to make is the wage gap doesn't exist. There's no wage gap. There's none, right? It wouldn't even make sense to have a wage gap, right? And the biggest argument that is against that, it's already been debunked many, many, many times, but the biggest argument against that, right? Why would you pay men to do the same job? What you pay them more to do the same job? Why would you not hire a woman who you can pay them less, right? If that did exist, and you are a businessman and trying to make business decisions and trying to save as much money as you possibly can, and have as much profit as you possibly can, wouldn't you think? Wouldn't you think to hire all women if you could pay them less? If I was a businessman, a savvy businessman, and that was actually legal, which it isn't legal, by the way, that's what I would do. And there's nothing wrong with it because that's just the business. That's just the business-minded people, right? What you're trying to that's business in general, right? That's why we have minimum wage jobs and stuff like that because the job obviously needs to get done and people are willing to work that job. But if you're willing to pay them less so you can have more profit and put that profit into something else, then why wouldn't you do that? So it doesn't exist. It's illegal to even pay women less. That's one thing. And the entire perspective of believing that there is a wage gap does not include like the hours spent, the jobs chosen. If you guys didn't know this, men are more interested in things and women are more interested in people. So with those natural interests, and I'm not saying it's all like that, but I'm saying that's a general idea. Um, we're gonna pick our jobs accordingly, right, based off of our interests. And some of the jobs that women pick, who are nurturing and caring and feminine, some of those jobs do not pay great, right? And that's another thing that the entire argument of there being a wage gap does not even take into account, right? Men work harder jobs, more physically tiring jobs. They're more likely to die in the workplace. There's a lot of things that kind of go into that don't get taken into account. Another thing is women take more days off than men. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a hardworking woman out there who works more than men. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, generally speaking, women take more days off than men. Usually, a lot of men work longer hours than a lot of women. There's no, well, men obviously don't have to deal with like any pregnancy leave or anything like that. So that kind of plays into the equation as well. So there's a lot of things that were never taken into account when it comes to that, right? I think it was like 70 cents on the dollar or something like that, which is, like I said, complete bullshit in my opinion, because it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, right? The study that came out that was so popularized, it just didn't have any true validity behind it. If I'm gonna be honest with you, it really didn't. And a lot of people took it and ran with it, which, instead of doing your own research like you should, they just heard the narrative and said, let me just go ahead and spew that narrative out, right? And like I had mentioned on one of my previous podcasts, talking about how to think critically, that's not thinking critically. That's just taking something that you heard and just spewing it out instead of actually doing some thinking for yourself, right? But yeah, that's the first thing I want to mention, right? The wage gap does not exist. It doesn't exist. It never did. Well, I won't say it never did. Let me take that back. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist right now. Another thing is this, which is another narrative that is spewed out by the feminist movement. The male privilege exists. The male privilege that they talk about, it doesn't exactly exist. It does kind of exist, but it also kind of doesn't exist because everybody has privilege. So why are you specifically, mentioning male privilege when privileges are afforded to a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons? Whether it's the way you look, whether it's who you are. There's a lot of privileges that are afforded to these certain people that is just the way of life, right? You just need to accept these things, right? There's a lot of things that women get away with that men would never get away with. There's a lot of things that men get away with that women might not get away with, right? And I didn't make society like that, truly, right? And I've told people this opinion before, and not opinion. I've told people this fact before, and it pisses them off because they think that I'm the one who wanted it that way, which is not true. I'm nothing more than you. I'm nothing more than just an observer like you guys, right? So with that being said, I'm just telling you what I see and how I see it, and whether you would like to see that or not is up to you, right? I'm just giving you all the knowledge that I know and that I observe. And if you don't see that, then maybe you're not looking hard enough. I'm a person who takes the time to research these things so I can talk about them on a podcast like this, right? I take the time out of my day to make sure I think about these things thoroughly enough to not make myself look stupid by saying these things, okay? So with that being said, everybody has privilege. Everybody has some type of privilege in some type of way. I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying that's the way it is, right? I didn't make it this way. That's just an observation. I'm nothing more than an observer, like I had mentioned. So get that out of your head. I guess there's no such thing as male privilege. Everybody has privilege. So if you want to talk about male privilege, you have to talk about female privilege. You have to talk about privilege of a certain gender or a certain class or a certain whatever, right? We all have our own privileges, right? But yeah, it's as simple as that. And the next point that I wanted to make. All right. What rights do men have that women don't? In 2022, is there any rights that men have that women don't? And I would say no. I specifically can't name one. I can't name one, right? And I don't want this to come off like I'm bashing the feminist movement, right? There's plenty of things that are positive about the feminist movement, but I wanted to talk about kind of how that conflicts with femininity because this is feminism versus femininity. So, like I said, there's plenty of great things that, like I said, came out of the feminist movement and are great and should be pushed on today. But you have to understand when it's getting taken too far, and these things are, in my opinion, like I said, have been taken too far, right? You're messing with the way people think by making them believe these certain narratives that are not conducive to a healthy society, right? And what I'm trying to do is trying to get people to recognize that there's certain narratives that are within society that aren't exactly in the society's best interest if it wants to remain healthy and actually stable, right? So if you want to believe some of these certain things, right? There's going to be an imbalance. There's automatically going to be an imbalance whether you like to believe it or not. Yeah, there's going to be a consequence for sure. All right. And another thing I want to mention, right? There's a lot of things that are like embraced within this feminist movement, this modern day feminist movement, right? That aren't, like I said, they're not conducive to a healthy society. One of them is hookup culture, right? Women are liberated to go and embrace hookup culture. Fellas. You know what? If you're a woman watching this, go ahead and knock yourself out, but don't complain if a man doesn't want you. I'm just gonna let you know that right now, right? Don't complain. Don't let anybody feel bad for you. I gave you the game. It isn't liberation, right? If anything, it's going to lead to a path of unfulfillment, right? And that's just the way it is, right? Indulging within hookup culture, whether you're a man or a woman, eventually is going to lead you to unfulfillment. It's not going to bring you the most fulfilled life you possibly can live, right? I don't care what nobody says. I don't care what the high value men say. I don't care about what these feminine or feminism or the feminists rather. I don't care what they're saying about hookup culture and it being liberated and thinking that's okay, right? You do whatever you want to do whatever floats your boat. But at the end of the day, I'm only going to give you the game that I wish for society to take because, quite frankly, it's lacking it. So, like I said, hookup culture isn't liberation. So never think it is. So that is going to be, like I mentioned. I'm not going to mention. I'm not even that. That's going to be my view on feminism and how it affects society in the negative way, right? With that being said, the second part to this podcast is going to be femininity, right? And with that being said, there's going to be certain things that I recognize, like just this for example, I mentioned earlier in the podcast, right? I recognize that people don't even know the difference between the feminism and femininity. So that's like I said, that's why I wanted to make this podcast. So femininity, if I could describe it to you, right, is the caring, supportive, empathetic, very positive, very intuitive, sensitive, cooperative, and complementary to the masculine, right? So it is one part of a whole, the whole being masculine and feminine, right? Femininity is one aspect of this. If you remove these certain qualities from society, your society is going to be lacking, and that's exactly what I observe right now. I do not see enough feminine women nowadays, right? I see these women trying to act a certain way that leads to a life eventually where it's not going to give you fulfillment, right? There's certain things, there's certain phrases that are used that are not feminine phrases that are, like I said, are not conducive to a healthy society, whether you like to admit it or not. But yeah, just that description of femininity should give you, hopefully, a better idea of what that looks like, right? And one thing I want to mention with mentioning femininity is most men, I'm speaking in general terms, right? Most men are going to prefer women who are feminine, right? And I would say right now, my observation is most women in society right now are not feminine. They do not know how to embrace their feminine nature. They truly do not. Or they're unaware of them even actually consciously choosing to do that, right? There's women that get looked down upon for being stay at home moms, for embracing femininity, for wanting to raise their own children. They're looked down upon by certain individuals. And here's the thing: if you have a problem with that, I do not know what to tell you. Like, it is what it is, right? And another thing I want to mention within this, talking about femininity, which I mentioned on a previous podcast as well, talking about the masculine and feminine dynamic, right? Is that society right now has an absolutely weak view of the way being feminine is right now, right? If you're a woman and you're feminine, right? A lot of women look at you like you're a pick me type of girl, right? They do not look at you in the highest light if you portray a feminine nature, right? And of course, there's certain situations where some people actually embrace this, right? And like I said, that I give a round of applause to those, right? But I would say for the most part, society is not embracing true feminine nature anymore. Like I said, it has a weak look, which I truly do not understand it, but that's just something that I observe. Yeah, and I would say, like I said, the feminist movement is going to contribute to not promoting femininity, right? Who's really promoting femininity right now? Do you guys personally know anybody that's promoting femininity besides me? If that's a no, then fellas, we have a problem. We have a problem. We have a fundamental problem in society. It is one thing. It's one part to a whole, right? And if there's going to be a lacking aspect, like society's going to lack in itself, right? Um, you in the comments right now, if you're watching this, do you see anybody promoting femininity? I see a lot of people promoting masculinity. Do you see enough women promoting femininity? Yes or no? What's good? What's good? GDP, thank you for stopping by. D the Cyberman, my boy. Appreciate you for stopping by. KJ holding it down as always, man. Appreciate you for stopping by, man. But like I said, I want to ask that again. Oh, she said nope. Exactly. Exactly my point, right? I do not see I do not see femininity being embraced within society. I truly do not. All the women that I see embracing anything is more of a masculine pursuit, anyways, right? And this is just the harsh reality of life. And what do you guys think about that? Do you think that's truly healthy, right? Do you think it's healthy to promote anything? Yes, I can't keep up with. the question that I asked, but I do not see it. I do not see it enough. I do not see it enough. What people fail to realize is femininity is the true power of a woman. That is the true power of a woman. There is so much power within femininity. It brings things to life, right? And that goes beyond just having children. That goes that goes with inspiring men as well, right? It goes a lot deeper than what people would like to admit. And the pursuit of feminine women is one of the foundations that is why men do what they do. And a lot of people do not think of it that way, but that is exactly what it is. It is exactly what it is. Another thing I want to mention is this: if you're a woman watching this and you want to live a more fulfilled life, you're going to need to embrace your femininity, right? There's a lot of young women right now that are on this feminist wave, right? That oh yeah, well I want to work until I'm 35, and then I'll think about having kids, right? Okay, we'll do that, and the odds of you having a child is going to go down drastically. And who knows? Maybe you'll even miss out on having that opportunity, and maybe you will regret that for the rest of your life. Who knows, right? You got to take these things into account. You got to take these things into account because that is happening in real time. And the funny thing is, I would say women right now are the least happy that they've ever been. There's a lot of women in their later years in life that are truly not happy. I want to say the least happiest demographic is a woman over 40. Believe it or not, a single woman under or over 40. That is the saddest demographic of people right now. Some of them maybe took it and ran with the feminist movement, right? I would suggest probably a lot of them did, I would say. But understand that women's fulfillment comes from embracing the maternal aspects of life, embracing the supportive nature, the empathetic nature, the positive, intuitive, sensitive, cooperative, and complementary aspects of life, right? Not climbing the corporate ladder, right? A lot of women that are young, like I said, they get caught up in this. They get caught up in the hype, and truly, there's a lot of hype behind what society's pushing, right? And that is what they're pushing. Obviously, they're pushing, hey, go work. Oh, I'll work these men, right? There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things like that within society. And like I said, I'm not saying that they're not necessary, but you got to understand when there is when they're going too far. Because quite frankly, in my opinion, like I had mentioned, I think they're going too far. There's a fundamental flaw within the programming of society right now, and if you don't see that with all the points that I've made, then I don't know what to tell you. Right? If you're in here right now, I appreciate you for stopping by. Let me know your thoughts on the topic for today. Let me know your thoughts on the feminist movement as well as femininity. The question that I had is: do you personally see femininity being embraced within society? So I'm gonna go ahead and leave you guys off on that. Appreciate everyone for stopping by. I got 7 people in here. Appreciate it, including Twitch. Like I said, I want to know your guys' take because obviously, this is Life of Champ podcast. I want to get different views, and hopefully, everyone can come to a better conclusion of what they see for this lens. It's important to have these. It's very very important to have these discussions because, quite frankly, the reason why I made this podcast is because I do not see these discussions being had enough. All right, fellas, come on now. Y'all got a comment, man. Come on now. I know I was talking for a little bit. I was talking for a minute, man. Where you at? Where you at? GDP? Where you at? Hazel? Where you at? Abdallah? Where you at, man? KJ? Where you at, man? Y'all cannot be sleeping on me. Y'all cannot be sleeping on me right now. Yeah, I just think that's so crazy. That is so crazy that women do not even know what the definition or how to even to describe femininity. That's so crazy. Because if you ask them the question, most women are going to be able to answer this. What is masculinity? They'll be able to answer it. Ask them what is femininity. They'll be like, what? I'm not saying all women are like this. A lot of women that I've met, I get to talking about these topics because I genuinely enjoy talking about these topics, and some of them don't have any input at all. They genuinely don't know. Why do women think that they can have more privileges than men, but most of them don't earn it. I do not know about that one. I'm gonna go ahead and I don't even know about that, right? And yeah, I would say that that perception, I think that perception that you have can be easily misconstrued with the propaganda of society, right? Thinking that women want more privileges than men, right? It's went that far. It's truly went that far where you have people like him, where I do believe that maybe that is a little bit of a stretch, right? I'm not going to answer that completely, but I do believe that even having that belief that women want more privileges than men is a little bit of a stretch, and it actually shows the programming of the feminist movement. Like I said, there's certain things within the feminist movement that I will stand on, right? Like, um, having control of, you know, pro life or pro choice. There's certain topics like that where just need to like leave it to women, right? Um, but besides that, like I said, there's in my opinion a lot more that is hurting society than helping society, quite frankly, because most of the work is most of the work of the feminist movement has already been done, right? And I would say, like I said, there's even things like, if you're a woman and there's not a lot of women in a certain group of work, like a work field, right? They're going to want to hire more women because of that reason, right? In order for a woman to embrace her femininity, a man needs to be a good leader. I 1,000% agree with that, right? And a lot of women cannot fall into their feminine frame because there is a lack of masculinity, or they truly do not know, like I said, what femininity is, or better yet, they haven't had a great example of what that truly looks like, right? And that's another thing that's hindering to society. Another thing that I will mention with that is also a lot of women do not even know what a good representation of a masculine figure looks like. And that is also very, very hindering to the way women see society as well, right? There's a lot of women that grew up without dads. And with that being said, they didn't have that masculine figure for them. So they their perception on masculinity and men in general, in my opinion, through my observations, is a little misconstrued because they truly do not know what a good man looks like because they've never had one. Most people get burned in a relationship, and it's hard for them to bounce back and trust in the relationship. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I for sure agree with that. Too busy having their guard up to embrace femininity. Exactly, right? And that goes back to just being intuitive as a woman, right? Being embracing that femininity, right? And part of that is knowing when it's okay to let your guard down, right? Knowing when you have a competent man in front of you, right? A lot of women never even get a competent man in their whole life, and if they have a misperceived conception of men, that's right. There's right for that. But I do believe that all women should seek out that in some fashion or another, whether it's looking up to an ideal masculine figure and saying, hey, that is something that I would like to strive for. Where's Anthony? I have no idea, man. But like I said, a lot of these topics need to be talked about. This is why, like I said, I have the podcast. I need to be talking about these topics, man. But yeah, everybody to have a healthy thought pattern, right? Of just life in general. We need to have a strong masculine figure in our life, and we need to have a strong feminine figure as well, right? And if you don't have either or if you didn't grow up with one, or you never seen one in action, then you're going to see that perception being placed on top of people, right? There's going to be certain expectations. There's going to be certain things that are going to be very, very hindering. Because, like I said, if you don't know how to handle a man, a good man, you're more than likely going to mistreat him. If you don't know how to handle a good woman, you're going to mistreat her. You're going to think that she wants this when she really doesn't want that, right? And I do believe, having the thorough understanding of these things, like the masculine and feminine dynamic, right, is super pivotal to if you're able to have a super thorough interaction with another person. I do believe understanding these things is going to help you out, especially within dating. If you can understand the masculinity and what that truly looks like, what a competent leader looks like, a person who can protect and provide for you, right? If you can understand what that is, it's going to be a lot easier in the dating market because you'll understand what you need to be looking for, right? A lot of people do not know exactly what they're looking for. Another thing that I want to mention with that is same thing with the femininity. You need to understand what is true femininity, and me even describing what that actually is. It might even be like, oh, well, maybe I would like that. Maybe if you're a guy watching this, maybe you're thinking, hey, maybe I would like that, or maybe you already knew going into this podcast that you wanted that, right? So now what to look for, right? Like I said, I would say out of all the women that I've talked to, I would say Very, very few, maybe like two or three, right? Where I could say they're truly in their feminine. They truly know how to do that. And I would say a few of them don't even know that they're in their feminine, right? But yeah, give me 1 second. Yo, relax, relax, relax. But like I said, I want to know your guys' take on these things. Why do most good women want? What do most good women want in a guy when he gets in a relationship? They want a masculine man. They want a good leader. They want somebody that can truly let them embrace their femininity. That's what they want. You got to be that guy. If you're not that guy right now, you got to become that guy, man. You got to become that guy, man. Become what you would deem to be an ideal masculine form, right? Figure out what that is. Try to emulate it as best as you possibly can, right? Simple as that. Did I watch the Tate and Aiden Ross collab stream? I watched some of it, man. It's very, very hard to watch, man. Aiden's not the best. He's not the best, dude. He's not the best, bro. I'm better than he is. I don't care. Nobody tells me, bro. Maybe I'm not better at entertaining than he is, but I would say, if you laugh at a lot of his things, there's a lot of things that he has in his streams that are just like, man, like this is for like children, man. But I do believe that if I had a podcast with him or a stream with him, you know who I'm talking about. It'd be better. It'd be better than his and Aiden's. I'm just gonna let you know right now. This man did 100. I think was it 150 push-ups in like an hour or two. Tragic, bro. I get that done in like 15 minutes, if that. But yeah. So like I said, if you do you guys see, I'm gonna answer this question. Do you guys see femininity being embraced enough within society? Do you see more masculine women or do you see more feminine women? Answer that question. Most women are in survival mode, therefore not allowing them to be in their feminine. This generation is coming from broken homes, not good examples of solid men, and maybe taught from their mothers in a negative way. Yes, I do believe that as well. I do believe that those women who let's just say they had a kid, right, and the man leaves, right. They are conditioning their child to view masculinity in a certain way, saying, "Hey, don't don't like men for this specific reason," right? Instead of saying, "Hey, you need to stay away from these type of men, and actually you should strive for these type of men," right? I do believe that women, a lot of women who are single mothers, they unconsciously program their children in a way that does not show them truly what it looks like to have a masculine figure. I would say a lot of women unconsciously bash men in that regard. They bash men to their child. They rant about something and they're bashing men, and now the child has a misconstrued perception of what masculinity or true masculinity actually is. They only have the negative aspects of what it actually is. Yeah, so that is my take right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the podcast off here in a minute, but I appreciate everyone for stopping by. Like I said, make sure you go ahead and leave a like. If you are new or if you're just watching this, make sure you go ahead and leave a like. All right, give me 1 second. All right, for sure, for sure. Like I said, my perception of this is definitely interesting because, like I said, I would say I'm speaking more of an unpopular opinion. Well, an unpopular conditioning. Let's just say that it's what I would deem to be unpopular nowadays. Even though, fellas, like I said, take what I have to say into account. Take into account the societal programming that you've been had, and now make your conclusion. What is your conclusion? How do you want to frame that? What do you think about femininity now? What do you think about the feminist movement now? Do you need to see it on both sides? You need to see the greatness. You need to see the greatness within the feminist movement. You need to see the negative side of the feminist movement to make a full in-depth opinion. A true well-informed opinion, right? And now I would say now you need to recognize femininity and it's all of its greatness because that's all there is. That's all there is. It's just greatness. It's just greatness. I'm not going to say there's anything negative about femininity. There's truly not. Um, and it's just as simple as that, right? Like I said, a world without femininity is a world that is a rough world, and we are living right now in a rough world, in my opinion. I like how that comment mentioned how women are not a lot of women kind of don't know how to be in that feminine frame because they're in survival mode. I think I like that example very very much so because it is true. But like I said, you as a woman you need to recognize what true masculinity is and what you would like out of a masculine man. And I'm speaking in general terms. Not everybody's attracted to masculine men, and not all women or not all men are attracted to feminine women. I understand that, but I'm speaking for the 99% of people. I would say 99%. I would say like 80% of people. I'll say that, and it probably is a little higher than that, but I'm speaking for the 80% because it's the 80%. So yeah, it's the majority. So I'll speak for the majority. Now I do believe though that there's certain claims that I have made within this podcast that are not emotion filled, that are truly not emotion filled, that are nothing more than an observation. And I do believe, through my perception, there's a lot of um, arguments that against feminism that are not being had, or they cannot even be had, because the women that are having the argument are so quick to label the person for having a differing opinion instead of trying to understand them. And in any interaction that you have with somebody, the main thing that you should be trying to do is to try to seek understanding within that person. The second you want to try to change their opinion, you're not doing the best. All I'm going to do is give you all that I can, and you can go ahead and make your opinion for yourself. If you hear everything I have to say and you still disagree with me, fantastic. I just hope you have enough reasonable evidence to suggest otherwise. That's all I'm going to say, right? If you don't agree with me, I don't expect everyone watching this to agree with me. I don't expect everyone to, like this podcast. But what I'm saying is, hopefully, you can at least, have a better, well-informed opinion about the certain topics that I'm talking about. So you got to see it from both sides. You got to be able to, if you're gonna believe in something so strong, you got to be able to you got to be able to defend it very, very well. And you got to be able to actually have those conversations. You got to be able to understand that there's difference of opinions instead of just writing off some of these ways. And like I said, if somebody challenged me on this, I'd be willing to take the challenge and I'd be willing to have the discussion because quite frankly, those discussions need to be had. You need to see both sides. You need to see both sides within society. Like I'd mentioned on a previous podcast, if you only see one side of the narrative, society is being programmed in a certain strategic way, whether we would like to admit it or not. It is being totally controlled and totally persuaded in a certain way, and that is what I see personally. All right. Yeah, I want to emphasize on this one more time when it comes to the feminist movement, right? Career-oriented women, right? You're not living, like I said, you're not living the most fulfilled life you possibly can, right? It is nice for a few years, but like I said, I would say a lot of young women's perception on their jobs and things like that, and thinking that I don't need a family and all this stuff, right? I do believe that it's not going to, your opinion is not going to stay that same way. I truly believe for most people, for most women that have that opinion, a lot of women are going to change their opinion later on in life because they'll recognize, well, you can work a job, you can get to the top of your field, right? You can dominate the workforce, but when you're 90 years old, you need somebody to take care of you. If you don't have any children, quite frankly, no one's going to take care of you, and that's the harsh reality of life, right? That's why children, that's why family is so important in general, right? And I do believe that not promoting femininity is going against the true family unit, right? And that's going against the foundation of society, which is the family unit, right? So that is just the way I see it personally. That's the way I see it personally. I want to make this point one more time. This will be the fourth time I make this point, but it's absolutely necessary. I'm going to say it one more time. Yes, sir. D the Diamond, my boy. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it, man. All right. Women tried so hard to be equal to men that they forgot how to be women, fellas. I want to emphasize that point because it's so profound. When I heard that for the first time, I was like, wow, that's so true. That's so true. It is so true, right? That's so true, man. That's so true. One thing I want to mention with this as well, right? This is gonna get kind of off topic, but I want to mention it. It's gonna go back to the programming of society in general, right? I wanted to make a podcast on this, but I'd rather just say it right now. It's this question right here. Growing up, men are raised to treat a woman a certain way, right? There's certain things you should do, there's certain things you shouldn't do, right? Now, Are women truly taught how to treat men? Answer that question in the comments. When women are being raised, when girls are being raised, do they truly have that paradigm of, oh yeah, I should treat a man this certain way? Or do they not? Answer in the comments, man. I'm gonna get y'all thinking today. I'm gonna get y'all thinking, man. Oh, I really want to know. I really want to know your guys' take on this. Because personally, I do not see women knowing how to treat men truly. They don't know how to. A lot of women don't know how to. Because, first, they're not in tune and in touch with their femininity. And that's, like I said, that's something you need to figure out on your own, right? Whether it's gonna, hurt your life or help your life, right? I do think it's gonna hurt your life only. There's really no advantage to not knowing how to treat men. But like I had mentioned, right? Young boys are they're raised to say, hey, you need to hold the door open for a woman. You need to get her flowers. You need to do this. There's so many things. But now when you flip it, right? Are women really taught how to treat men? And you ask a lot of men, or you ask a lot of women, hey, how do you treat a man? I don't know. They don't. They for the most part don't know. They don't know. No, they don't because the man has to treat the woman so that the man could get the utmost respect. Women just already get with any man, but men have to earn it. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I agree. But like I said, he basically says no, no. Women are not raised and taught how to treat men properly. They're not. And that all comes down to their vetting process and their intuition, like I had mentioned earlier, right? Trying to recognize what healthy masculinity looks like, right? Obviously, there's going to be um, unhealthy masculinity as well. What does that look like, right? Being very, very conscious of these things it's an absolute necessity with navigating society. It's an absolute necessity. So yeah, to come to the conclusion, do I think the feminist movement as a whole was a positive for the world? I absolutely agree that it was a positive and was absolutely necessary and should have happened way before it did, right? Even though it probably couldn't have, but I do believe and do wish it was something that was um, more prevalent earlier on in human history, or yeah, I could say in human history. That's sadly the way it is in human history. But with that being said, I do believe that there's a lot of things that they've taken too far, right? And it's hard to double back. It's hard to double back on certain things, right? It's hard to come back from those certain things. But I need if you want to have the most healthy society, I need more women speaking out on these certain topics, right? Saying, hey, feminism went way too far. I agree with a lot of things that they're saying, but feminism went way too far. There's certain things that are not they're not conducive to a healthy society. There's certain viewpoints that a lot of feminists have that are not great. And I'm not saying the contrary. The masculine has the perfect ideal as well. Obviously there's going to be lacking aspects in every single argument, but what I'm saying is you need to understand the faults, right? I understand the faults of I understand the faults of masculinity, and that's why I made this podcast in the first place to help people get out of those certain things. Okay. I got another grandma. Shout out to grandma, man. It is so sad that our society has moved away from what the norm should be. Roles need to be clarified for sure because first men and women need to understand how to treat and how to be treated. Exactly. She's exactly spitting facts as she usually does. Shout out to grandma, but yeah, there's no flaw within that statement, right? I do believe that there's natural roles in society, right? Or natural roles that should be in those relationships. There's natural roles, right? Now, I do believe that not specifically that they have to be gender specific, but they need to be clear at the very least. If you want to have gender specific roles, that's fine. But I also do believe that there's gender specific roles, whether they're communicated or uncommunicated, that exist, right? For example, right? Somebody breaks into your house, who's handling that? The woman or the man? Unconsciously, you're going to say, "Oh yeah, the man's going to handle it." So there's actual natural roles within the male and female dynamic, or within the masculine and feminine dynamic. There's the natural role. But yeah, you need to understand your role, and then you need to understand how you want to be treated, understand how to treat people, and it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. That's going to give you the best out of society. That's going to give you the best. Yeah, but yeah, if you're a person who believes in a lot of the feminist propaganda, right? Understand that, like I said, there's going to be lacking arguments that exist, right? Understand there's going to be things that a lot of women take pride in that they probably shouldn't take pride in. There's a lot of things that are being liberated right now that probably shouldn't be liberated because it doesn't do anything great for society. And it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that, right? And like I said, I'm a person. Like, let's just say I have a bunch of people commenting on this video, suggesting otherwise. I'm more than happy of having a person who has a contrary opinion that I do. I'm more than happy to bring them on the podcast and have the conversation. More than happy to do it. I'm happy. I'm happy to learn. Like I said, I want to give you guys the game. I want to give you the best content that I possibly can be given out. Right. With all that being said, so I'm not afraid. I don't duck the smoke. I don't duck the smoke, man. If you want to have an argument, let's have an argument. Let's do it. Let's do it. But just be sure, like I had mentioned, I think everything out very, very thoroughly. So if you want to have an argument with me, perfect. But just be ready. Just be ready. Be ready to have your points. Yeah, be ready to have your points, right? If you're lacking on your points, then it doesn't matter what we talk about. Then your points are going to be irrelevant. Not exactly irrelevant. They're going to be less effective. I'll say that. All right. You should bring a girl on the pod that has a different viewpoint than you, so y'all can debate on the podcast. I 1,000% agree, and I will be having that very, very soon. Hopefully, I'm gonna see. I'm gonna tap into a few girls that I know that have a contrary opinion. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you why that is even hard to have, because something that I mentioned with the Anthony podcast recently. A lot of women do not know how to conduct themselves properly within a disagreement. I'm sorry. That is the way I see it. That is the way I see it. I'm not saying that there's not women that can do it, right? I would say 60% of women probably can't, right? They let their emotions get in the way, right? And that is the way it is, right? I would like to have a emotionless, logical argument. Of course, there's going to be some emotions, so it can't be completely emotionless, but I would definitely love to have a woman that has a contrary opinion to some of these things that I mentioned on today's podcast. But a lot of them are incapable. They shut down. They shut down before they even have the conversation. They're emotionally upset that I have different opinions instead of saying, "Oh, okay, let me see, let me try to understand this person." Right? A lot of people struggle. A lot of people struggle to have a coherent and thorough discussion or disagreement. A lot of people struggle with that, which I understand. But if you want to be a complete person, you need to go ahead and learn how to do that because you need to. Indeed, indeed, D. I agree with you. I agree with you, my guy. Appreciate you for stopping by, man. Appreciate you for going on Twitch, by the way. Also, I'm on Twitch as well. If you're watching this on Twitch, make sure you go ahead and leave a follow. It's just Life of a Champ podcast on Twitch if you do want to go ahead and follow me on there. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end the podcast off very, very soon. If you guys have any other points that you want me to mention, make sure you go ahead and leave it in the comments. Or if you agree or disagree with some of the things I have to say, make sure you go and leave in the comments. I feel like, quote unquote, I feel like almost every female in an argument or debate nowadays. I would say that's most people, but I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. That's pretty funny though. Yeah, but I would be more than happy to have a female that has a different opinion if they're truly wanting to like I'd mentioned, right, seek understanding instead of just to argue, right. That's what I try to do. I try to seek understanding. There's things that I don't understand. There's a viewpoint that I want to learn from. And even if I completely disagree with this person, there's at least something I can learn from. Whether even at the very least, I know how to, you know, contradict one of their points or something like that, right? At the very least, right? But that shouldn't be the main. That shouldn't be the main. You know, the main purpose. The main purpose is to seek understanding. Try to come to common ground and try to, like I said, come to a better realization of what's actually going on. What the discussion actually entails, right? That's it. That's the ideal circumstance within a disagreement or discussion. But yeah, fellas, I appreciate everyone for stopping by. Yeah, I'll wait 2 more minutes. Let's see if you guys have any more comments. But if not, then I'm gonna go ahead and end it off. Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to a few people that I think have a differing opinion, and I'm gonna see if they want to be on the podcast. It's called the art of communication for all parties in a discussion. Exactly, the art of the communication, or grandma. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, but it's a lacking art. Communication is a lacking aspect of society. A lot of people don't know how to communicate. They don't. It's as simple as that. A lot of people don't know how to speak. And some other podcasts that I made, how to speak, because a lot of people don't know how to speak truly. Like I said, how to think, how to speak. I gotta do all these things because people need the game. They truly do not know how to think properly. They truly do not know how to speak properly, right? That's why I have to make those podcasts, because I'm a person who's conscious enough to try to learn about those certain insufficiencies that I have myself within thinking, within speaking. And there's a lot of people that do not want to take the time to do their own personal research. That's why I make the podcast. So if you want to watch the podcast, you'll get a lot of the knowledge, a lot of the foundation that you need. That's that's pretty much why, like I said, that's one of the reasons why I made this podcast in the first place. Just trying to give you guys more game. That's it. But other than that, I appreciate everyone stopping by. I'm gonna go ahead and end off. This was the Life of a Champ podcast, episode number 83, talking about the feminism versus femininity. Hope you guys learned stuff from this podcast. If you're rewatching this, make sure you go ahead and leave a comment on your favorite part, and also if you learned anything or if you have a disagreement, make sure you go ahead and leave in the comments as well. Other than that, you guys have a good rest of your nights, and until the next podcast on Thursday, that is going to be an interesting one, hopefully. I'll be having a special guest on that has never been on the podcast before, so make sure you stay tuned in for that. Other than that, I just want to leave you guys off on the motto of the podcast, right? Fellows over here, we don't just work, man. We outwork. So make sure y'all working these motherfuckers every single day. Don't skip, man. Don't skip, man. Do what you got to do. Outwork these people, man. It's as simple as that, man. Like I said, you guys have a good night. And like I said, until Thursday.